Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's panel. We really hope to build a dialogue around online classrooms and the kind of experiences that they really afford to students. So let's have a quick round of introductions. Labdhishree, can I request you to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Labdhishree Tater and I'm a student of class 12 in St. Joseph's Boys High School. Apart from studies, I like running, hiking, cycling. Basically, I like doing anything outdoors. And I've been attending online classes since the past year and a half.
Sanjana, let's move on to you. Maybe you can also add something about what really brings you to this space, to this panel in particular.
So my name is Sanjana Chakravorty and my pronouns are she, they. I'm a third-year student of computer science in Kolkata. I've been diagnosed with ASD and I'm very passionate about women's empowerment, accessibility and education, especially accommodation of people with disabilities in the classroom. I love teaching and learning, and I had the chance to do both during this pandemic. So I would love to share my experiences about that. Apart from just studies, I like football. I play football and I'm learning Japanese.
All right. Thank you so much for introducing yourself to everyone. So let's begin our discussion. So I think, what we have observed is that many educators tend to focus on the infrastructure of online classrooms, especially when we're dealing with academic research or surveys at large. Nobody's really paying attention to the personal experiences of young students who are actually engaging with the virtual mode, which is, I think, a very important aspect because online classrooms don't really offer the kind of opportunity that you get, to talk to your peers in the way that physical spaces do. So I want to know how this loss of interpersonal interaction has affected you and in turn, your exchange with your immediate families. So Sanjana, let's begin with you.
Yeah, so I've said this so many times, but the biggest and worst takeaway of this online learning mode has been the loss in boundaries between my personal life and my work life. So usually I am able to restrict my work to a classroom or to an office space. But when I'm at home, then the place where I'm resting also becomes the same space where I'm working. And as a result, I'm not able to focus on my work. At the same time, I'm not able to relax fully when I'm not working as well. And if I'm not relaxing, that means I'm getting exhausted. I'm getting burned out. That happens really fast. And another really big disadvantage of this online learning mode is people seem to have assumed that you're free at all times because you're at home. That means you're available. So they just schedule things at the last moment. Or I've had teachers tell us that they will not give us a holiday on national holidays because you're at home. Why do you need a holiday? Every day is a holiday. It's not. Every day is not a holiday. So that's one of the really big problems I've faced.
I think that's an absolutely important point. The boundary between work and personal life is just becoming so very permeable with this online space. Labdhishree, do you want to pitch in?
Yeah, so like Sanjana said that people think that we're always free and they call us for impromptu meetings. That actually affects the family time as well because when we used to go to schools and colleges, we had a specific time where we used to study and there was a specific time where we used to play and spend time with the family. But that's really hard right now because everyone has different timings. So we are not bound by a time right now. We just do work throughout the day. So it just becomes hard to sit with the family and talk with them and get to know about your day. And that also got affected because you don't have anything new to talk about because all you're doing is attending classes online in front of a screen. You're not even seeing your friends, you're not talking to them. You don't talk about maybe a rare bike that you saw on the road while traveling to school or back to home. So the amount of conversations that we have with families has reduced considerably because of that, because the timings just don't match with each other. We are free at different timings. So, yeah.
I think monotony is also something that we're not really talking about a lot. Being in that space where you don't really have anything to talk about makes it difficult to extend that conversation with your peers within or even beyond the classroom. So thank you for bringing that up. And interpersonal communication is, I think, something that's not only limited to our peers or families, right? It's also something that is very important when we see it in context of our interactions with our teachers or professors. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your exchange with your educators and mentors, and let's just develop that discourse. So Labdhishree, if you want to go first and share your experience.
Yeah, so usually I'm the one who's very keen on learning new concepts, and I love asking questions because that somehow broadens your thinking and makes you understand the concept properly. But I think since I started attending online classes, that has reduced considerably. Because one, maybe I don't want to speak up. I don't want to look at the screen and ask questions when I'm not even seeing anyone. And two, I don't know who my teacher is. So I don't know them properly. I haven't seen them properly. So I don't know how they would react to it. So that somehow made me ask less or no questions at all. So that has impacted me really well because I feel like I understand concepts, but later when I go back to it, I know that yes, I could have asked this question, I would have understood it better. So it just made me ask less questions and in turn understand stuff less.
Absolutely. I think the online mode has been particularly challenging for high school students who are not even very familiar with the kind of features that they have, right? So that kind of makes it very difficult to have a great conversation or to learn effectively. So, Sanjana, do you want to share your experience now?
Yeah, that's a great point because even I started my college education online, and I only knew the teachers in my first year. And in engineering colleges, you don't really know your department in your first year. So I did not know my department. So I had to ask for letters of recommendations for scholarships, and I have no idea who to approach because no one knows me and I don't really know them. Also, I have had both a teaching and learning experience during the pandemic. So I know what it's like to be a student as well as a teacher. And as a student, what I've faced is I get distracted really easily. So if the teacher's explaining something and they've prepared slides, the slides are probably not engaging enough. And I got distracted, I zoned out. And then after some time, I've completely lost track. So now the teacher says, do you have any questions? Yes, I have many questions. The first one being, what is this and what are we learning? But I can't ask that. And so I keep quiet. And although I know I should be having a lot of questions, I cannot because it would expose the fact that I have not been listening. And I think a lot of students keep quiet for the very same reason, that we are ashamed to admit to the fact that we're not really paying attention. And I think in general, people don't really point out the fact that it's really difficult to focus during online classes. Now, as a teacher, I have found this incredibly frustrating, equally frustrating. The fact that I ask, are there any questions? And all I can see are black screens. I can't even see people's faces. And there's no response. So it feels like I'm talking to the wall. And, it's a very horrifying feeling to be a teacher in this situation. And also, I did not face this, but I know a lot of teachers face this. And that is suddenly adjusting to an online mode when all their materials so far was directed towards a classroom environment. But now suddenly they have to create slides and content, which has to be engaging enough to keep people's attention. And many teachers have struggled with that. So this has also impacted the student-teacher relationship in our classrooms.
Sanjana, you brought up a very interesting point right now. So you said that you were not able to get any feedback from students in terms of their body language or eye contact, because many of them would choose to keep their videos off. And of course, that can really impact, the kind of dialogue that is there between the student and the teacher. So you're on both sides. You have the experience of being a student as well as of being a teacher. So let's talk more about this, right? Like, we have teachers who are not getting feedback, and we also have teachers and professors who are trying to take extra classes even on national holidays, as you pointed out a while back. So as students, do you think that your response to your professors or teachers would be uniform in all classes, or do you think that you would perhaps be more, interested in actually interacting with them if the class is really effective and if the teacher is really taking the kind of pains that, say, Sanjana is here? Labdhishree, let's start with you, because you're in high school and I can only imagine the kind of problems that you're facing right now. So let's just talk about those challenges first, and then we'll come to Sanjana.
So you said that if teachers actually made us, they talked about all the concepts from a different approach, would it really be effective, right?
Right, if teachers were like Sanjana is.
Yeah, so I definitely feel that it would be effective if that was implemented. But I obviously do not have a personal experience, so I would not be able to tell you actually if it would be effective if you look at it long-term wise. But I really feel that we could actually try it out, because we would also get a practical understanding out of it, which we are finding it hard because it's online and it is all theoretical. Even if you're talking about maybe a solid that is crystalline, you're talking about it in a 2D mode. So it's difficult for you to actually imagine the cube, actually imagine what happens with it. So if we look at it from a different view, if we actually take on it from an application based view, then I'm pretty sure that we all would actually like to concentrate in class and understand concepts from a practical approach and not just for the sake of learning.
Actually, adding to this, I would also like to point out, not just from the teachers' side, but there is a huge community that is a classroom. And when you're learning, the fact that you're learning together makes it a lot more engaging in the first place. So usually what happens is if I zone out even in physical classes, it's not an online specific thing, but what happens is I have my friend taking notes beside me, and I can rely on the people around me to teach me the things that I've skipped or that I could not focus on. And just the fact that we're all in our houses learning online makes us feel very alone. And it shouldn't feel like that. The classroom has always been a community learning together. So doing everything alone just increases the monotony of it.
Right. I think this, the metaphor of the classroom as a community is something that all of us should take home with us. I think that's a great way to really approach classrooms in the first place. And I really hope that helps students who are still engaged with classrooms at the moment. We have this very interesting question in the Q&A that is very relevant to the kind of discussion we're having right now. Rijal Arora asks, how do you manage your well-being during classes? And I know you've already talked about this in some capacity when you talked about the loss of interpersonal communication with your peer circles in general. But is there any aspect of mental health distress that perhaps you can shed light on? Or, a lot of us really resonated with this feeling of languishing, a word that really became a part of our everyday vocabularies after the publication of an article in the New York Times. So is it something that you want to take on?
I think that we can manage our well-being during online classes by managing both studies and extracurriculars together. Maybe there is something that we love doing. So why not go ahead and do it in our free time? Yes, I know that we all have meetings throughout the day, but there'll be that spare half an hour in between where you can give time to yourself, do something you truly love doing, or just sit and close your eyes and think about what had happened and what you would be doing in the next half day or the next hour. So that really helps you to know yourself better, understand yourself, and also spend some time away from the digital screen.
Absolutely. I think engaging in hobbies and just reflecting and introspecting in general can be very helpful. Sanjana, do you want to add on?
Funnily enough, the online mode has actually helped me look after my hobbies. So, of course, initially I struggled a little with the sudden adjustments, but then I realized I don't have to spend 2 hours in commute anymore. I'm saving a lot of time with staying in college classes, and staying at home just makes things a lot more convenient. So I joined football classes again. I practice thrice a week. I started learning Japanese. I started reading more books again. And that's because I made a conscious decision that I will not make my whole life about work and study, and I will also take care of my hobbies. So in that way, the online mode has made that easier. But also one thing it's made a lot more difficult is doing things together with other people. So suppose I have a football team, but of course, a lot of the team members are able to play because they don't have to go to their colleges in Bangalore or their offices in Gurgaon. So they're in Kolkata, they can play. But what about all the friends I made in college? They are all over India. They're not really here right now. So that's one disadvantage of the online mode, that if you want to do something with the friends you've made that who are not in your city, there's really no way to do it.
Right, absolutely. I think let's just move on from personal and academic outcomes of the virtual mode and discuss more about this topic that has now emerged, right? Let's talk more about the professional opportunities and challenges that the virtual mode is sort of brought on. So, of course, there is this thing where students are not very comfortable in dealing with online education systems or classrooms in general because they can be very burdensome, right? And at the same time, there are quite a few students who were extensively engaged in pursuing virtual internships, online courses, advanced programs, and all kinds of opportunities that the online medium could offer. So how did the two of you negotiate with these opportunities and challenges? And where do you find yourself in between these spectrums?
Yeah, I'm a third year student right now, which means I've already done one internship this summer and I'm a part of a fellowship program. And I go to a tier 2 college in India, which means that we often don't get certain opportunities because of the college brand. But because of this online mode, I have noticed that it has unlocked a lot of opportunities, especially for people in computer science, because remote work means you don't really have to be based in some other location. You can work from home wherever you are. And that's just opened up a lot more opportunities for us. I think companies have also started hiring more people. And in general, I think I've managed to do a lot more because of this online mode professionally than I probably would have if we did not have the pandemic. But of course, like I said, there's downsides as well, because I just told you a few moments ago about the problem I faced with getting letters of recommendations is I have not been able to make those connections that would allow me to get those letters. And that has also been difficult in a way. Also, I'm only talking about it from a software perspective. Now, of course, if you see students who are working with hardware or who are working in other branches of engineering like mechanical, they will be having a very difficult time right now with these opportunities because most of their work is offline. So that has been a huge disadvantage for those people.
Absolutely. I think it really depends on the kind of academic discipline with which we are engaged. So, of course, the virtual mode will have a different set of opportunities and challenges depending on what kind of paths that you're pursuing. Labdhishree, would you also like to add on to something about your experience with dealing with these challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, so I think one good thing that I felt was that we could attend these talks with universities abroad because of the pandemic. We had these virtual platforms where representatives would come and speak about their universities, give us guidance. I'm not really sure how it would work out if it was offline, but I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't have been the way it is right now because we had around, I think, 10 or 12 universities who came and spoke to us about their courses and stuff. So this, I don't think this would have been the case if it was offline because I don't think these representatives would obviously travel all the way to India to actually give us any guidance. But yeah, I'm missing out on a lot of campus life. So even after studying in that school for a year and a half, I don't know my way around the campus. So they recently started hybrid classes for us, and I actually need to go with someone who knows the school because I don't know where the computer lab is. I don't know where the physics lab is supposed to be. So that is another backdrop because I essentially chose the school because of its campus, because of the extracurricular activities that it offered me. So I felt that it was not what I expected it would be. And as for the extracurriculars, I think the teachers are trying their best to actually, give us opportunities to dance and send a video, but you wouldn't feel the excitement that you had when you would be dancing in front of a whole crowd or maybe practicing on stage in front of the whole crowd. Look at the placing on your stage and everything. So all of that has not been there. So yeah.
Right. Some of them can actually appear to be half-baked activities that might not be as fun as they would be in physical spaces. And I think access to international programs and sessions is something that all of us are quite happy about. Otherwise, these can be quite inaccessible, and these networks can also be very impenetrable, right? So I think that's something that we really need to appreciate about the online mode. All of these were, I think, great insights on the kind of possibilities that the virtual mode can offer. Let's also talk about grading and marks. So marks are not always very indicative of student potential, but in a certain way, I think they do play a role in orienting student attitudes to learning. They can also act as great incentives for students sometimes, if not at all times. So how do you think that this recent shift in assessment methods and evaluation at large has changed your perspective to learning in general? Sanjana, let's go with you.
So I'm not a big fan of the grading system in India specifically because it's always been very memorization dependent. And in offline exams, you had to memorize the textbook, you had to quote your notes, and that's how you got the marks. But let's face it, it's become much easier to do that in the online mode for a variety of reasons. And because of that, you'll see that the average marks of the class has drastically increased. And that's not because everyone's suddenly become a good student. It's because the whole system has failed because of this change in medium. So right now, if you are continuing to hold exams which are memorization dependent, which are based on quoting your textbook, it's, well, whatever little you were expecting to test the students, that fails. And I don't really mind that, because originally I don't think it was doing a very good job in the first place, because not everyone has the same capacity of memorization. Not everyone can rote learn the same text, and that should not determine your grades. That should not determine how good or bad a student you are. So I do think that the online mode has, brought attention to the fact that, the system was not really serving its purpose anyway. Now, you can do two things. Either you can try to change the system, or you can set question papers which are not really based on how much you have memorized, but more on how much you understand the concepts. That's one way, but that would involve a huge reform of the entire education system, classrooms and teaching, all of that. Another way is increase invigilation, make it really difficult to cheat, increase plagiarism checks. But that is also very difficult because my class has a strength of 100 students. And the more students, the more difficult it gets. And eventually students are really good at finding loopholes. That's one thing students are very good at. And the third thing that you can do, and which is probably happening right now, is less importance given to grades. So since everyone's getting a 9.5 GPA, everyone's getting 98%, it doesn't make sense anymore to grade someone, to judge someone based on their marks, because it's a disproportionate reality right now. So what is happening even in my college, even in my environment, is the importance of marks is lessening. And people are trying to shift away from that to other methods of grading or finding out someone's skills. So that's an interesting question.
You mentioned that students are really good at finding loopholes. Maybe that's a reflection of their strategic skills, right? We can even see it in that way. But yes, I think that's really something we need to keep in mind. Labdhishree, would you also like to share your experience?
Yeah, I feel that online mode actually worked out well for our exams. This time, because the board decided that they wanted to bifurcate the syllabus. They wanted to introduce semesters. So it kind of released our stress of studying the whole textbook at a go. So we just had to study half at one go and then go to the other half at the other go. And they decided to have MCQs for the first semester. So that worked out pretty well for me, except for math, because there were many derivatives that we just had to sit and memorize, go and just write it on the paper. Now I feel that I can just go ahead with understanding the concept on my own and ignoring learning all of these derivatives, the theories and the laws, and just understand the subject in general so that I don't forget it afterwards. I remember it as something that I truly learned and not as something that I wanted to learn just for the sake of exams. But I don't know if it actually tested our potential, because we have these math questions where we just need to solve questions and mark one answer out of it. So I don't know how you do that in a lesser amount of time. You have the same amount of marking system. You have the same syllabus, you have a few questions, but you have lesser time. You have half the time to just write it on the paper and mark the answer. So that didn't make sense because towards the end of the day, I need to work out the sum. I do it hastily or I do it in a beautiful manner so that the examiner can actually look at it. So I feel that it doesn't truly test our potential. It doesn't truly test how we work it out, how we are actually learning it. They just want the answer to it. Another thing was that she said that the marking scheme actually didn't make sense anymore, and the colleges tried to figure out how else it could be based on. But that didn't happen in high school because they still expect the marks. That system still hasn't changed. So we're finding it hard even now because no matter online or offline, you're supposed to score well or you face trouble later. So that was another thing that didn't happen well. One more thing was that this year the syllabus changed. So we had this sheet called reduced syllabus where we had stuff that was there and that was removed. So I was forced to question if whatever we were studying earlier was actually important or what was removed now wasn't that important. And I found that many of the application based concepts were removed. So I was forced to think that is the system making it more theory based? It was already theory based, but there was that tint of practical knowledge in it, but now that also was removed. So I do not know if our system actually wants us to understand its practical importance in our daily lives, or it just wants us to write stuff on the paper, get some marks, forget it, and move on with life.
Right. I think this increased emphasis on theory is just something we really need to question, and we have to focus on different kind of strategies and different kind of assessment that make it easier for students to understand concepts and apply them in a real sense, so that what they're learning at the school level is something that remains relevant even when they graduate. Um, well, I think Sanjana has a question.
Yeah. I just wanted to add one more thing to this same topic, and that is our college, at least in engineering colleges in India, the college curriculum is outdated pretty much. We're still learning things that don't really are not really used much in the industry. So because of this online mode, it's been easier for us to focus on building our other skills and not just worry about our academics. Because I've told you, it's become easier for students to get marks. So that's like one thing less to worry about. While at the same time, people could focus on doing the things that would actually help them probably get a job or something.
Absolutely. I think learning outcomes are much more important than marks, which are very temporary. Listening to you really exhibits the extent to which information overload is real, and we really have to develop different strategies and different ways in order to cope up with this Zoom fatigue. Let's move on to the Q&A. We have a lot of questions coming in. Okay, so there's a question by Ravisha Sharma. She basically talks about the fact that the warmth of a person who's sitting beside you is something that's not very comparable to what happens in the virtual space. So what can you do to build meaningful relations with people? The two of you have already talked about how difficult interpersonal communication is to maintain. But what can we do to actually create meaningful relationships? So maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer to that. I'm looking for that same answer. I struggle a lot with interpersonal relations. Labdhishree, do you have any tips?
I would say that the past 1 year, I didn't have anyone to talk to because I didn't know many people. But one good thing that helped me open up with people was that we had a fest. It was an online fest, but still, we were the ones organizing it. So we used to spend hours, of course, on Zoom calls itself, preparing for it and debating about it. So that really helped us to know our classmates. But the warmth that we feel while sitting in a classroom, that's difficult to match in the virtual setup because it's close to impossible. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's very close to impossible because it's not feasible and it's not possible as well when we're talking about a situation like a pandemic. You can't even make groups of 5 sit together and study because that also isn't safe. So it would be very hard to do that, especially in an online.
And I'm one of those unlucky people who has friends who are really bad at texting. So this whole pandemic has felt really lonely for me because I've not been able to establish communication. Now, in-person communication is so much easier, but it cannot be substituted by text or video calls.
Right. So I think that's a question that we need to keep thinking about. All right, then we have another question by Piyush Sharma, who wants to know how we can make online education truly immersive using technology at our disposal. So I think let's not delve too much into inclusive education policies at the national level, because then policy making is a completely different discourse, right? Let's focus more on different kinds of actionable steps and strategies that institutions can take. Something that can help students be more comfortable in confronting the kind of stress that they are dealing with right now. Labdhishree?
Sure.
Okay, so I feel that okay, just a second. Could you please just show the tell the question again?
Yeah, all right, sure. So basically, this is a question by Piyush Sharma, who wants to know how we can make online education more immersive using technology.
Okay, so I feel that if teachers understand our problems at a personal level, then it would be easier for us to understand them. The thing is that we try to uh, generalize students when it comes to online education. When it was offline, people would actually see our body language, our faces, and make out that yes, maybe this student hasn't understood this concept. But that's not possible in the online mode. And of course, students would not want to speak up when it comes to online education. So if the teachers understand us on a personal level and understand that not all students are the same and that capabilities are different, we can make it more inclusive and interactive. Of course, they wouldn't be able to teach differently to each student, but they can make it more inclusive and understand us better, understand our problems better, and maybe give us less work so that we know, yes, they also understand us, and it's not only completing your syllabus or completing what has to be taught. It has to be what we understand as well.
Absolutely. Sanjana, you are very eager to share. Let's hear you.
Yeah, so there's two aspects I'd like to talk about. One is the fact that the students are not going through the same situation. So during this pandemic, we have focused a lot on the online mode of learning, but we somehow overlook the fact that people have also been dealing with the pandemic and not just online mode of learning. So that means there are people who have been dealing with sickness, who have been dealing with death and loss, and it's just been really difficult for them to to cope up with their mental health. And apart from that, there are own homes, and we don't know the situation in their homes. Maybe they don't feel safe at home. Maybe they don't have a place where they can study. Maybe they don't have a place where they can unwind. Maybe it's too noisy. Maybe it's too small. It's too cramped up. Maybe they don't have power. Maybe they don't have proper internet connection. And all of this impacts their education directly. So that is one huge disadvantage, inequality that has come through online mode of learning, because at least in a classroom environment, everything that comes from uniforms to having the same class timings and same lunch timings and having a common cafeteria, all of this aims at providing equality amongst the students. But when all of that is taken away, then it becomes a really unequal situation for everyone. And this was a disadvantage, but one thing I want to point out is how online education has actually been inclusive in a way. So I am part of the neurodivergent community, and so many people in this community have expressed the fact that they have just been able to learn better during the online mode. Because suppose people with social anxiety or people with ADHD, when they're giving presentations, I have friends who told me that, I'm fidgeting under the table, but they can't see me. So thank God. I have friends who can't make eye contact, and they've had points deducted because they couldn't speak without stammering, or they couldn't make proper eye contact. And they've been fidgeting or pacing in front of people, and they couldn't be caught doing that here because no one's making eye contact. You can fidget under the table and no one's going to notice. So suppose people with OCD or autism, we have rituals that we follow which make it a little difficult to reach places on time. So I used to find it really difficult to commute every day, and everything, it just makes my daily life more difficult if I have to wake up and get ready and commute. But when I'm at home, I'm in the comfort. I don't have to worry about the people around me. I can do things with a lot less anxiety. So this conversation has been raised in the international neurodivergent community, that has the online mode of learning pointed out the different ways in which education has been ableist and non-inclusive to disabled people. So I think that is one way where online mode has really benefited some people.
Absolutely. I think, well, thank you so much, Sanjana, for sharing that perspective, because whenever we're dealing with conversations on the subject, what we do not really take into account is the fact that students with, say, students who are a part of the neurodivergent community at large can have very different and varying experiences than the ones which we otherwise think of in the mainstream. And well, thank you so much for bringing that up. I think it's really important to talk about how these online systems have become much more conducive for students with social anxiety, for instance, as you rightly pointed out. So I think we have too many questions here by our fellow attendees. Let's just take a final question, which is, I think, something that really helps us conclude our conversation. Post COVID-19, do you think that online classes would go, or do you want it to be hybrid, as in a combination of online and offline? So I think this is also a question that in a certain way deals with the sustainability of online classrooms at large. So based on your experiences, what do you really want for the future of education?
I think high school education, I don't think online works out for it at all. But college level education as well, I can see some ways in which online makes it easier, because you can focus on the particular subject and upskill yourself and focus on getting yourself a job. But also college is a time when you have a lot of social development, you grow a lot as a person, And honestly, I have not received that opportunity because all my practice of going and ordering food at the canteen or getting on the bus and crossing the road, all that practice I've forgotten. So right now, if you leave me on the road, I'm going to be lost. And that can't do. I'm an adult. I should be functioning properly. So I don't think online mode has helped too many people. And especially, again, I mainly think of it from a software perspective, but all those students who need that practical experience apart from a computer, it's really hampering their education. And I don't think it's helping them at all. So I would not say online mode is a very good idea, at least not right now, not the way we do.
Labdhishree,
Sorry.
no, please go on.
Okay, I totally agree with Sanjana because, like she said, that high school and online classes don't really match. Because this is the time when we try to balance our studies with interacting with people, enjoying the last few years of school life. So it won't really work out online. But if we're given the option of hybrid, I feel that it's actually really good because there might be days when I feel sick and I wouldn't want to miss my classes. Maybe I can just attend it online. Maybe I can just maybe rest at home, attend classes. So that way I would not want to not have to miss classes while I'm not going to school. So just keeping it offline may not give me that kind of an option. But and we're considering that when the whole class is in school, I don't really think that it would work out well because the teacher is teaching on the blackboard. They're being taught to teach on the blackboard using their own materials. So how would I attend an online class when I'm at home? So that problem obviously arises, but if we can find a way out of it, then I really feel that hybrid classes would be amazing for us because we would be able to rest as well as learn at the same time. We don't have to miss out on either one of them.
That's a great perspective. Thank you to the two of you for sharing, your journeys with us and your experiences with us. These online infrastructures and systems were introduced in early 2020, and that abrupt shift was something that a lot of students had trouble figuring out. And even now, these systems are still in place, and even now, students are not very comfortable with the way online education is proceeding. So I think having this conversation with the two of you is something that has really helped all of us reevaluate our perception of online education in general. So I just have one final question, after which we will conclude, and I want the two of you to just take 30 to 45 seconds in answering that. So how do we look up from our screens in this age of online education? What strategies can you really share with us? Sanjana, you look excited again. Do you want to share first?
So my work, it's actually really difficult for me to look up from the screen because I am a software engineer. So my work is coding and that involves a lot of screen time. But I try to include activities that do not relate to the screen at all. So either hanging out with my friends, going on walks, or I joined my football team again. So I'm playing twice a week. I'm working out every day. Physical activity in general is something that helps me stay distracted, stay positive, feel a little stronger. So that, of course, I know not everyone is able to, stick to a physical exercise routine because maybe they don't have the space or maybe they don't have the capability. But if you can find a way to engage in some sport or team activity or just daily disciplined exercise, I think that actually really helps. People keep saying that exercise is the solution to all your problems, and well, that's not true, but it is a good step in the right direction.
I totally agree with Sanjana because, like she said, that we can maybe work out, maybe do some physical activity. Because from my personal experience, the reason that I loved running and cycling was because I could clear my head. I could remove all the frustration that I had due to the online classes. I could interact with other people who were into sports. So it turned out very well. And like she said, that yes, it may not be the only solution out, but it actually helps us. It gives us that mental strength that is required to actually go through this time. And we all say that we have a very busy schedule and everything, and we have to study a lot. And I agree to it because obviously, yes, it's very important for us to study because it kind of shapes our future. But giving ourselves time is also important, right? So if we can maybe make a schedule uh, where we have definite amounts of time for definite activities that we do, we can surely manage it well, and we can actually do everything together by giving it time. So we all keep saying that we don't have time, there's a lot to do. So it's fine if we don't do it tomorrow. Maybe today we can maybe do it tomorrow. But yes, keep some amount of time for yourself where you don't use social media, where you don't use your phones. Just concentrate on yourself. Maybe that helps us not to look at screens, because when you're not attending online classes, maybe we are looking at our phones. So that is also a digital screen, right? So we can maybe not use the phone or the laptop or any other device for that matter, and just spend time with ourselves.
This advocacy for having a personal life is something I really appreciate, particularly in the contemporary LinkedIn culture of, hustle and growth, which is of course important. But then at the same time, it is important to look up from the screens and really engage in activities that are very important for our self growth as well. I think a lot of people have also shared links to podcasts, especially the one. I think there's a look up podcast as well that I really urge all of you to check out, all of the fellow attendees. And I think this has been a very productive and wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Labdhishree and Sanjana, for sharing your experiences with us. And thank you to all the fellow attendees who were here listening to the three of us. There's another session happening at 6 p.m., which 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and it deals with how we can focus on well-being, in this in the digital age. So I would urge you to have a break right now, or perhaps set up different virtual meetups in order to network with people on Hoover, and then come back to that session at 6 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here. I had a great time.
Thank you so much for having me as well. It was an amazing talk.